Subscribe to my channel for more stories. Now let's begin this one. The gallery lights hummed softly, their warm golden glow bathing the polished hardwood floors in an aura of sophistication. The air was thick with the scent of crisp white wine, fresh lila arranged in towering vases, and the faint musk of expensive perfumes. A low murmur of voices filled the space, art critics, collectors, and curious locals mingling, their eyes darting from one canvas to another. This was my night, the opening of my first solo exhibition at the prestigious Hargrove Gallery, a moment I'd dreamed of since I first picked up a paintbrush at 13. Months of sleepless nights, hands stained with ultramarine and cadmium red, and endless revisions had culminated in this. 22 paintings, each one a piece of my soul, hung with care on the gallery's pristine white walls. At the heart of it all was my centerpiece, Eclipsed Horizons, a massive oil painting that dominated the far end of the room. Its swirling blues, golds, and violets seemed to pulse under the lights, drawing gasps and whispers from strangers who paused to stare. I stood near the entrance, my heart pounding with a mix of pride and nerves, clutching a set of note cards for the artist's statement I was about to deliver. This was my moment until my sister, Clara, swept in front of me, her voice cutting through the crowd like a blade. "This piece," she declared, gesturing grandly toward Eclipsed Horizons, "is my heart and soul on canvas." The room turned to her, enraptured, as she stood there in a sleek black dress, her auburn hair catching the light like a halo. My stomach plummeted, a cold, sickening lurch that left me rooted to the spot. Clara was stealing my work, my painting, right in front of me, in front of everyone. The note cards slipped in my sweaty palms, my carefully rehearsed words dissolving into a haze of disbelief. She was claiming Eclipsed Horizons as her own, spinning a tale of inspiration and struggle that was pure fiction. The crowd ate it up, nodding along as she described late nights in her studio, wrestling with the canvas, pouring her emotions into every stroke. Lies. All lies. Clara had never touched a paintbrush in her life. Not seriously. She'd never set foot in my studio, never seen my process. But she had a gift for performance, a charisma that could sell sand in a desert, and right now, she was stealing my legacy. Clara had always been the golden child in our family, the one who could charm anyone with a smile and a well-timed quip. Growing up, I'd watched her take credit for my science fair projects, my poetry, even my baking at family gatherings. She'd laugh it off as a sisterly prank, and our parents would shrug, saying, "Oh, Clara's just being Clara." But this was different. This wasn't a school project or a batch of cookies. This was my career, my passion, my life. I'd poured 6 months into Eclipsed Horizons alone, not to mention the years of study, the student loans, the rejections from galleries that had led to this moment. And now, Clara was standing there, basking in the applause meant for me, her eyes glinting with a confidence that made my blood boil. I could have screamed, could have stormed up to her and called her out right there. But the room was packed with influential people, critics from Art Forum, collectors with deep pockets, curators who could make or break my career. A public outburst would make me look petty, unhinged, maybe even jealous. No one would believe the quiet, introverted sister over the dazzling Clara, not without proof. I needed something undeniable, something that would expose her lies without turning this into a spectacle. My mind raced, grasping for a solution, and then it hit me. My sketchbook. It was in my bag, tucked behind the refreshment table where I'd left it during setup. That sketchbook wasn't just a collection of drawings, it was the roadmap of Eclipsed Horizons, filled with every preliminary sketch, every color study, every late-night doodle that had brought the painting to life. Dated, annotated, unmistakably mine. If I could show it to the right person, Clara's charade would collapse under the weight of the truth. I slipped through the crowd, my pulse hammering in my ears as Clara's voice carried on, weaving her fabricated story. She was describing a moment of epiphany under a starry sky, claiming it inspired the painting's cosmic palette. I bit my lip to keep from scoffing. Clara hated stargazing. She'd always called it boring. At the refreshment table, I grabbed my bag, my hands shaking as I unzipped it and pulled out the sketchbook. Its worn leather cover was soft under my fingers, a familiar comfort amidst the chaos. I opened it, flipping through the pages to make sure everything was there. There was the first rough outline from March 12th, a hasty pencil sketch of swirling ships. There were the color tests from April, swatches of blue and gold with notes on their opacity. There was the revised composition from May, a detailed graphite drawing with measurements for the canvas. Every page was dated, signed, and written in my distinctive, loopy handwriting. I even had a Polaroid taped inside, showing me working on the canvas in my studio, time-stamped April 23rd, weeks before Clara ever saw the finished piece. She'd only glimpsed eclipsed horizons when I'd invited her to a private preview last month, a decision I now regretted. That's when she must have hatched her plan, realizing the painting's potential and deciding to claim it as her own. I scanned the room for someone who could help me expose her without causing a scene. My eyes landed on Ms. Evelyn Hargrove, the gallery owner, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s with a reputation for fairness and an encyclopedic knowledge of art. She'd championed my work from the start, discovering me at a local art fair a year ago and offering me this solo show after visiting my studio. She was standing near the bar, sipping a martini and watching Clara with a faint frown, her silver hair glinting under the lights. Ms. Hargrove wasn't just influential, she was meticulous. She'd seen my process, commented on my sketches, even asked about my inspirations during her studio visit in April. If anyone would believe me, it was her. I approached, my voice low but urgent. "Ms. Hargrove, can I show you something? It's important." She raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension in my tone, but nodded and followed me to a quieter corner near a sculpture display. I opened the sketchbook, flipping through the pages slowly, letting the evidence speak for itself. Her eyes widened as she recognized the evolution of eclipsed horizons in my sketches, the same curves, the same color experiments, the same emotional notes I'd shared with her visit. "This is your work," she said, her tone clipped, a trace of indignation creeping in. "I saw these sketches months ago. Why is your sister claiming it?" I swallowed hard, keeping my voice steady. "She's lying. Clara's never painted anything. She's done this taking credit for my work but never on this time. It's too far. I need to set this right, but I don't want to ruin the evening for everyone else." Ms. Hargrove nodded, her lips a tight line. "You've done the right thing by coming to me. Leave it to me. I know how to handle this discreetly." Her eyes sparkled with a hint of determination, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite in my chest. She moved toward the front of the gallery, where Clara was still holding court, now answering questions from an art critic about her use of negative space. I stayed back, clutching my sketchbook, my heart in my throat. Ms. Hargrove didn't interrupt Clara's speech. She was too seasoned for that. Instead, she waited until Clara paused to take another question from the crowd, hanging on her every word. Then, with rapt attention, Ms. Hargrove raised her voice, her tone polite but with an edge that commanded attention. "Clara, your passion for this piece is truly remarkable. Could you share a bit more about your creative process, perhaps some early sketches or studies? I always know our guests are fascinated by the artist's journey, and I'm sure you'd love to showcase how this piece evolved." The room turned to Clara, expectant, their eyes bright with curiosity. Her smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second, but I saw at the first crack in her carefully polished armor. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous tic she'd had since we were kids, and stammered, "Well, I don't have my sketches here at the moment. It's all in my head, you know, the creative process. I work intuitively." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a mix of intrigue and doubt. A few collectors exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from admiration to skepticism. Clara's charm was powerful, but even she couldn't conjure up sketches that didn't exist. Ms. Hargrove pressed on, her voice calm but unrelenting, like a prosecutor building a case. "That's quite surprising. Most artists I've worked with document their work extensively, especially for a piece as intricate as Eclipsed Horizons. I recall seeing detailed sketches for this very painting months ago when I visited your sister's studio in April." She paused, letting the words sink in, her gaze sweeping over the crowd to gauge their reactions. The air in the gallery seemed to thicken, the hum of voices falling silent as heads turned toward me, then back to Clara. My sister's face flushed a deep scarlet, but she doubled down, her voice rising with a forced laugh. "Oh, those sketches. They were collaborative sketches. We worked on it together, you know, as sisters. It was a family project, really. That was my cue." I stepped forward, my legs steadier now, holding up my sketchbook like a beacon of truth. Ms. Hargrove, I have the sketches right here, I said, my voice steady carrying across the gallery, louder than I expected. The crowd parted slightly, giving me space as I opened the book to the page dated March 12th, showing the initial concept, a hasty sketch of shapes swirling in pencil and ink, annotated with notes on perspective. These are mine, I continued, my tone firm but calm. Every sketch, every color study, every note, every page. All dated, and dated, all signed, all created by me. I worked on this piece alone for 6 months in my studio. Clara only saw the finished painting last month when I invited her to a private preview. I handed the sketchbook to Miss Hargrove, who took it with a nod and began flipping through the pages for the crowd to see. Gasps and murmurs and whispers erupted, growing louder as people leaned in, catching glimpses of my loopy handwriting, my signature, my process. A critic from Art News in the front row, a wiry man with wire-rimmed glasses, asked to see the book up close. Ms. Hargrove passed it to him, and he studied it for a long moment, his brow furrowed in concentration, then looked up at Clara, his expression stern. These sketches are remarkably detailed, he said, his voice carrying a note of authority. They're clearly the foundation of Eclipsed Horizons, and they predate any supposed collaboration by several months. This is the work of a singular artist. Clara's composure shattered completely. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Her hands fluttered nervously at her sides, her eyes darting around the room, as if searching for an escape exit. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of shock, disapproval, and a few hushed sympathies. A woman in a velvet blazer, a collector I'd met earlier that evening, shook her head and whispered to her companion, "That's just appalling. How could she think she'd get away with it?" Another guest, a young artist I recognized from a local co-op group, caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up, a gesture of solidarity. Ms. Hargrove took charge once more, her voice calm but firm, cutting through the rising tension like a lighthouse beam through fog. "It seems there has been a significant misunderstanding here," she said, addressing the crowd with the poise of a diplomat. "This exhibition celebrates the work of one artist, and the evidence is clear. Let us redirect our focus to the true creator of Eclipsed Horizons and continue to honoring her remarkable talent tonight." She gestured toward me, a warm smile breaking through her stern demeanor, and the crowd began to clap hesitantly at first, then with growing enthusiasm. The rest of the night passed in a whirlwind of emotions and conversations. Guests flocked to me, some offering apologies for the earlier confusion, others praising my work with a fervor that felt almost apologetic. "Your use of color is extraordinary," said a curator from a nearby museum, her eyes lingering on Eclipsed Horizons as she handed me her card. "I'd love to discuss a potential show at our gallery." A collector, the man in a velvet blazer who'd overheard his wife's earlier comment, approached with an offer to buy Eclipsed Horizons on the spot, his bid a number so high it made my head spin. "This piece deserves to be seen," he said, shaking my hand. "And you deserve the recognition for it." Clara slipped out of the gallery early, her face pale and her shoulders hunched, her usual radiant confidence shattered. I caught a glimpse of her as she passed the front window, her head bowed as she hurried down the street into the night. A part of me wanted to chase after her, to demand answers. Why had she done this? Why now? But another part, the part that had spent years in her shadow, knew it wasn't worth it. The sketches had spoken for me, louder and more convincingly than any confrontation could. As the evening drew to a close, Ms. Hargrove pulled me aside once more, her expression softer now, almost proud. "You handled that with remarkable grace," she said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Not many could have faced such a betrayal and come out stronger. This is your night, and you've earned every moment of it." I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "Thank you," I managed to say, "for believing me, for giving me this chance." She smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "I didn't just believe you, I knew. Your work has a voice, a soul. No one else could have created it." By the end of the night, Eclipsed Horizons had sold for a record-breaking price, the highest ever for a debut artist at the Hargrove Gallery. 2 other collectors commissioned new pieces, and a critic from Art Review promised to feature on my work in the next issue. My career wasn't just launched, it was soaring, propelled not just by my talent but by the truth I'd been prepared to defend. The sketchbook, now safely tucked back in my bag, had become more than a collection of drawings. It was a testament to my resilience, a shield against anyone who tried to dim my light. In the weeks that followed, Clara avoided me, sending only a single email, a curt apology that felt more like an obligation than genuine remorse. "I got carried away," she wrote. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Our family heard the story through the grapevine, and for the first time, they didn't dismiss it as Clara being Clara. My mother called, her voice heavy with regret, apologizing for not seeing the pattern sooner. My father sent a bouquet of flowers with a note that read, "We're proud of you." It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The gallery show ran for a month, drawing record crowds and glowing reviews. Eclipsed Horizons became a talking point in the art world, not just for its beauty but for the story behind it, a tale of betrayal and triumph that resonated with anyone who'd ever had to fight for their place. I kept painting, my studio filled with new canvases, new ideas, new dreams. Clara never tried to steal from me again, and though we never fully reconciled, I found peace in knowing I'd reclaimed my voice. Somewhere, in the quiet moments between brushstrokes, I knew this was just the beginning. The world was waiting, and I was ready to paint it.